Hello, welcome to the Just Rewind podcast, where we bring context to culture. I'm your host, Kobe Taylor. In this show, we'll explore what it is to be a creator and bring new ideas what it means to be an artist. We also hope to create connections and the opportunity to learn something new within our society. So sit back, relax, and just rewind.
Yo, all right.
All right.
Well, welcome aboard.
What's up? Welcome to the Just Rewind podcast, where we're bringing context. I messed that up. We're bringing context to culture.
Joined to you by the Dope Not High Show. So let's
Dope
go.
Not Hype Show. Appreciate y'all joining us. Getting back, me getting back on track. We have two special guests here. We have Ozzy here and DJ Turnstile. How you guys doing today?
Yo, what's good? What's
Give
good?
you guys a chance to introduce you guys yourselves to the people right now. So say what's up.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, world.
Hello.
Wait, what's my camera?
Any camera you want.
Hello.
I mean, that might be your camera right there.
Naughty type.
You get a hello. You get a hello.
You get a hello.
You
get a hello. And you get a hello.
Everybody
Woo!
guess what?
Let's go. Let's go. Okay, yes.
But you know, man, I appreciate y'all coming through, bringing the energy too, because it's been a day for me. So,
Yeah.
man, let me forget some stuff today. Let's have a good conversation. Learn about some things you guys do, and what you guys got coming up. So you want to start, DJ Turnstile?
Yeah, let's start off with Turnstile over here and let's
Start
know.
with me. Great. And we're not going to stop. I'm just going to fucking
I mean,
go,
you're good, man.
You listen to our podcast, it's like talk style. That's mostly
Yep.
what it is. Ozzy's like, word.
Styles and Dris. Yeah, I was
3 hours.
I do that shit on purpose.
Word.
I'm like, everyone's going to get the Minnesota treatment
Yep.
today.
Yo.
Go ahead, Turnstile. Talk away.
All right. Yeah. So, I don't know, man. Where should I start? What?
I mean, where'd you grow up? What's how did
Where'd
you
I grow
come-
up?
Like, where'd
Okay,
you
shit
grow
look
up?
like
What's
this
family
morning?
like?
Yeah, what my shit
that
looked like
fun
this
stuff.
morning. It was kind of corny, like my act. I'm a born and raised Minnesota native. I started out over in the West Metro.
Okay.
Was raised for the first half of my schooling in Crystal. And then in middle school is when we moved up to the boony burbs of Chisago, which is
Oh.
like way up there past Forest Lake. It's like
Okay.
30 miles north of the Twin Cities. And then after I graduated from high school, I ended up making it back down to the Twin Cities, but then I moved to the East Metro. And I've been like living mostly around the East Metro until recently. I'm back over in the Brooklyn Park area. So
Okay.
big up to Brooklyn Park.
Brooklyn Park. Shout out Brooklyn Park. My girl's from Brooklyn Park, so
There you go.
got a
there
good
you
place
go.
in the heart.
Yes, yes. So, got into dance at an early age. It just kind of came with the territory, especially growing up over in Crystal. It was like part of the cultural experience, especially because I was in such a diverse area to begin with. So, everything was always based around music and dance and, middle school lock-ins. They used to do a lot of things at the YMCA over in New Hope. So that was mostly like the place where you trained up.
Wait a
And-
second. You
yeah.
danced? That's dope.
Yeah. I
am not plugged in enough. Okay, go
yeah,
ahead.
so they would so basically there was like a thing where it was like you didn't start going to like school dances until around high school, right?
That's true.
But what they would do is they would have just these teen nights, which was
YMCA
basically like a club.
Yeah, that's
And-
true. I forgot about those.
Yeah, and
coming
what they-
back.
We also had
Coming
those in my.
back.
Yeah, and
Yep.
and they would book out the it would be a free for all because like you'd walk in, you'd pay your admission, and you'd be able to go play basketball, kick it over by like the vending machines, and then they took the fitness room area. It was like a fitness room dance studio, and then like they rigged it for like
club.
club lighting and music and everything.
that.
So we came up in that era. Well, I came up in that era because I'm a little bit older, where it was like the tail end of it was like the transition from like the golden era of hip hop into like the New Jack Swing era. So a lot of stuff was like fused. Like a lot of rap music was also fused with R&B. So it was like a lot of like Bobby Brown and things like that. But then stuff was just beginning to get over into like the kind of the gangster aspect.
Like
so
NWA.
yeah, and it was like, and you started to see like this fork in the road when it came to the styles that people had, because there were some people that really did have like a hip hop and like b-boy steez, and then the other heads were into like the thug thing. So and I never gravitated towards that. I was always into, you know, breaking and stuff, but if it was by the time that, you know, I started to like really fuck with like breaking specifically, as soon as I'd hit the floor, people would be like, yo, that shit's corny. You know, Turbo and Ozone are over that way. You know, Beat Street is down the street. You know, because everybody at that point was all like, you know, into like Pac and whatnot, and getting on that whole thing. So
Didn't Pac start out dancing?
yeah. Well, no, that was the funniest part. I always joked around about that shit because I was just like, yo, Diddy was a backup dancer for Houdini.
Yep.
I mean, everybody that was anybody usually started in that, and even Pac, you know, I mean, trade secret there. He went to like a Juilliard fame school.
Yep.
You know, and so it was like you were trained in ballet and modern and poetry and getting all up in your feelings and whatnot. So by the time that I moved up to the Booney Burbs, there wasn't like really a dance culture up there, and it was like mostly a predominantly white school. So I was like, it was ironic because it was a culture shock for me. I'm kind of like, yo, where the fuck is like everybody, you know? And they're like, oh yeah, what we basically do is we stand around, and then every once in a while someone's having a party. They're going to get drunk in a cornfield or like someone's garage or whatever. I was like, that's it?
Yeah.
So every weekend I was always making a point to come back down to the Twin Cities. And I was also an avid skateboarder. So because of skateboarding, and especially because street skating still held on to hip-hop culture versus people that were like getting into like the thug thing. It was like the ones who actually were still into like graph and breaking and stuff like that were mostly skaters that I knew.
That's true.
And or they were like affiliated with skaters. Like you'd always go to like a party and there'd be like a skater who's a DJ, a skater who's a graph writer, a skater who's who can break, you know, and whatnot.
I mean, I want to stay on that topic, but I mean that's mostly what street apparel came from.
Yeah, exactly.
Skateboarders who also like hip hop,
Right.
They meshed, like Supreme lived off you guys. Basically.
Yeah. I mean that was like the whole thing that people realized once, especially like I talk about how important it was with skate culture, because on the West Coast, skating was mostly derivative of surfing originally, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And then, but what started happening was once by like the early '80s, they started closing down a lot of the skate parks, because they were just like, they weren't pulling in enough business, or there was like liability issues, kids, you know, breaking their arms. Parents were like, I don't want my kid to do this. So they kind of took it away from like a place where kids could go. So kids did what's in our nature, right? We're urban gorillas, right? If we can't go to a gymnasium, what do? We play at the park or in the street, or, you know, between houses, or, you know, abandoned places. And so skating just kind of went into this different direction. And because of that, it became a lot more blended with Black and Latino culture. Because then now you had, you know, brothers that were like skating out in Philly that were like, yo, we don't skate pools and we don't skate vert.
We skate
rails. we skate street, we skate at Love Park, we do all these things. So, you know, you were definitely going to be mixing and cross pollinating with other subcultures.
And it's a hobby that anybody can do.
Exactly.
Anybody can skateboard.
Right. And it was like, and that was the thing that, like, when I started coming back down to the Twin Cities, this was circa 90, because I moved up there in 93, and then by 94, that was where I started getting kind of put on game to the underground breaking culture that was emerging again, where it wasn't so much that it was gone, it was so underground that you had to be at places. You had to be at some place where like Daylight was breaking, or, you know, somebody else from like the Battle Cats, to like really see that, you know, people were doing this still. And simultaneously, you know, it was like we would go out to like dance parties, like Sunday night dance party at First Avenue. Somebody would be having a house party over in like Minneapolis, like South Minneapolis especially, or spots in St. Paul. And then I started, I mean, it's statute of limitations, so I think I'm pretty safe now. I think I've said this before. But I looked a lot like a friend of mine had an older brother who had an Iowa State driver's license. He moved over to Minneapolis, and he still had his Iowa State driver's license, and they used to just be laminated. So you could doctor the shit out of those things back in the day. But it was kind of faded, and especially like the laminate was starting to kind of like come up. So I looked a lot like his brother. So I just started getting into clubs with this thing. I just had to memorize the birth date and whatnot, and I was able to go in and get down. So I was like, at that point, I was clubbing, and that's how I started really getting attached to house music. Because up to that point, I knew house music, and I heard it in pockets because I had been exposed to it when I was a young kid driving through Chicago, and I heard WBMX.
And what year was
the
this around when you started getting into house music?
Well, when I first got exposed to it was 87, right? But it was because I was, there's no club to go to. You heard it, but you didn't really know what exactly it was unless somebody explained it to you.
Right.
By the mid 90s, I was actually going to clubs, so I was hearing this and I was like, oh yeah, this is the shit that I got put onto when I was younger.
Right.
But it was already starting to evolve at that point, and especially because house music, the technology was so cross compatible with hip hop that you were getting a lot more of like the sample culture. People were sampling more like disco and funk and soul and things like that to really make these like super like lush house beats that were no longer like straight up like original, where they just were playing like on only drum machines. Now they were getting to the place where it was like you'd have like Anita Ward and like a 2-bar loop mixed with this and this, and that was like Todd Terry's shit. So so I was going to like clubs and things, but at that point it was still like freestyle dancing. Okay. So I didn't even know, like, most of the stuff that I was doing at the clubs was still like New Jack style and like faster and like up tempo, but it wouldn't be considered like quote unquote house dancing.
Okay.
Because I had no idea that that's what the shit looked like over in New York. Yeah, there's a big difference.
Okay.
And then fast forward a couple more years, and at this point I'd been clubbing quite regularly, and I got reintroduced to the dance scene here in the cities, and that's when I started going to breaking events. So then I started focusing like mostly on breaking, but my true love was always house. And then when I ended up meeting Ozzy, this was around the same time that we had our Universal Zulu Nation had a chapter here, and we were the Omega Zulus.
Before we keep on going on that, we're going to come back on that. You just dropped Ozzy's name.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's let people introduce Ozzy real quick right now.
Ozzy, you got to hear your background.
Yeah, because they got to know real quick before you go, because people might not be able to keep up now that you dropped Ozzy's name. But Ozzy is right here, but he's going to introduce himself real quick.
I'm taking note of this.
I was in the zone here. I was in my own little zone.
The whiskey was kicking in.
Yeah,
My lips.
I was like, here we go. No. Yeah, my name's Ozzy.
So what do you do? How does your day look like? What makes Ozzy happy?
Well, hold on. Let's get a little
origin story.
Yeah, origin story.
We want to know your story.
Like Marvel up in
here. I'm originally from the Bay Area.
Shout out the Bay, hey man. Shout out my people in the Bay. You know what it is. I got hella friends in the Bay. What up?
There we go. And I bet you they're probably like, oh yeah, if you're from the Bay, where are you from? Because a lot of people always say, oh, San Francisco. Or like Oakland, but no, I'm from Daly City.
Okay.
So that should already give him a heads up, like, yeah, he's from the fucking Bay.
Yep.
It's like if you're from Minnesota, I'm not going to say Minneapolis, I'm going to say Richfield.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I get you. Yeah.
Or like New Hope.
Right.
But no, I'm born in San Francisco, raised in Daly City and San Francisco, but pretty much throughout the whole Bay Area. Like, if you really want to get deep, Vallejo. So that's East.
Man, my boy. Okay, that's crazy.
Right,
I actually... You know what's weird? I was gonna ask you from the Bay. Like maybe I'm making that up, but I was like,
just the way you carry it. You can oversell. It's just like no matter how long you've been away, there's still how you carry yourself.
It's like
y'all keep it clear out there.
It's a distinctive type of vibe or look, So one of my colleagues, and I'll get back on track here in a second, but just to kind of bring that up, one of my colleagues, her boyfriend just moved here from San Jose. And, just the way he was exactly the way I was when I first moved here. But, he's an adult version. When I moved here, it was in 99, going into 2000. Okay. But I still had like that, like, raw kind of attitude where it's like, if anyone fucks with me, I'm going to fuck them up. Type of thing. And, of course, moving here, I got into a lot of like almost fights and shit.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I've never seen so many white people in my life.
I bet.
I was like, this is fucking weird, dude. But no, you know, so I'm 34 now, and yeah, when I moved there, I was around 10 or 11, and straight to Richfield.
Okay.
Still live in Richfield. So Richfield, shout out to Richfield. Richfield's a hometown, for sure. You know, and I've pretty much been here throughout my whole life. Started dancing, listening to music back in the Bay Area, but the dancing that, I mean, you know, we're all exposed to breaking in the 90s, right?
Right.
And then in my neighborhood, it's all so-called Little Manila. So it's like a lot, if you know anything about Filipino Americans, like, we're infatuated with talent. We're infatuated with black culture, pretty much. Like, you know, we love the music, we love the dance, we love the style, we love everything about it. And if you really want to get deep, Filipinos do come from Africa, so maybe that has something.
I mean, yeah, it's true. A lot of my black friends from there talk about that a lot. Like, it's a big, you know, everybody fucks everybody up there.
Yeah. So then, if you have like a mixed kid that's Filipino and black, I always say like that little motherfucker's gonna be talented as hell.
Yeah,
make you money,
talented.
make you that bank.
No,
Jalen Green, what up?
Yeah, right. No, but so I started getting super into music back in the Bay Area. It was a thing that you had to be well versed in, especially in hip hop, R&B, slow jams. As a kid, you know, in middle school, we would have like radio days where you'd bring your own radio or your boombox, and they would just let you blast that shit in recess.
Oh damn!
I mean, just imagine. So I went to JFK Elementary, and then I went to Susan B. Anthony, and both schools radio days. So, which was odd that they didn't have it here in Minnesota, and I was like, this shit's fucking whack.
Because it used to start fights. Because you would actually have like people that would start playing shit, and then they would start getting a little bit too rowdy.
We'd have it there too. We'd have fights there too, but you know, we just let them fight.
Yep.
Let them fight.
Let them be killed.
But that was the thing, you know, it was cartoons and music that you had to be well versed in, and then with a little bit of dancing too. You know, all my cousins, they all danced. They were more so into the New Jack Swing era, or like, you know, freestyling era. And then one of my older cousins eventually got into breaking, and I started dabbling with it, but lost touch with it when I moved here to Minnesota because I didn't think anyone here did it. So I started playing sports. I've always been more athletic. I played football, was super into track, but I'd say the sport that I excelled with was football. You know, I was on the line. Ended up quitting that because I didn't grow. I was like, fuck this shit.
Yeah, same.
Going to high school, I was like, I am not about to be a running back. Fuck this shit. But then I ended up getting back into breaking due to one of my really good friends. His name is Marshall, or some people know him as Marshall Wynn, who is now like my boss in commercial real estate. But
you gotta get to that too.
Yeah. Well, so he got me into breaking. Ended up joining a crew called Propaganda Crew with Johnny Craze, or if you know him way back, his name is Crazall.
Okay.
Did all you guys all live in Richfield?
No, the most unique thing about my crew is that we're all from different cities.
Okay.
And the way we got around, well, the majority of the time, the way I got around was 10% of it was bumming rides, like literally 10%. 90% of it was walking or riding the bus, transportation, public transportation. Wow. That's why I don't really have that much, you know, empathy for kids today.
Like convenience.
Motherfucker, you got Uber in your mom's credit card.
Right.
Make it happen. Out of here.
Right. Make it happen.
You know, or walk. You know, I used to walk from Richfield. So I lived right by Southdale Mall. I used to walk from there to Mall of America. Or I used to walk from there to deeper in the deep parts of Bloomington just to practice for an hour. Yeah, I mean, like, you know. You do what you got to do if you want to dance, right?
I think, and I don't like to talk bad about the young generation, but I think, like, yeah, they're not as...
And that's the thing, right? That's why it's called a generation, right?
Exactly.
They're different, right?
Yeah, they're different.
So, and I get that, you know, but like
man,
at the same time, you think we have perspective,
right?
You know, from our generations, we have perspective, and we're kind of like, all right, well, whatever.
At your age, I wouldn't have done that at your age, bro.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of, but we can talk about that
for sure. We'll get into it. But no, so Propaganda Crew.
Shout out.
For y'all listening in, Propaganda Crew actually y'all had a big impact on the scene, but we'll get more into that.
We did our best for sure. But yeah, so I started really breaking in 2001. Was when I started dancing. Fast forward, got into rocking, and then eventually got into house. House came into my life in 2007. It happened on accident, really. Like I used to hate on it. I used to think it was all techno. And shit. Like I was like the biggest fucking hater of it, honestly.
Not everybody.
And whenever I watched it, I was like, these motherfuckers are off beat. The whole like, what the fuck are these guys doing? And it was one night. It was an after party. It was after one of the major events that we used to have here called Falling with Style. And one of my good friends, his name is B-Boy Thesis. He was dancing, and he had a big house dance background. I mean, I didn't know that at the time. And he was dancing with this girl named Chantel from Chicago, and with one of my old crewmates named Kid Rello. And I was like, what the fuck is, like, the way he was moving, you know, with this girl, I was like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, and he's like, I'm house dancing. And I was like, you're house dancing? What the fuck? And then from there, I'm like, I have to learn this. Like, this is interesting. And my strength in breaking were my tops, was top rocking. So it only made sense, right? Fast forward, I was at a breaking practice with my crew. And Tiberius, shout out to Tiberius.
Shout out.
I ended up doing like a quick house dance move. It was like a reset, and then I turned and spun out. And he looks at me, he's like, stop doing that, you look stupid. And
that's
one thing about me is I get motivated when people like fuck with me like that. Like,
I'm going to show you up.
Yeah, so from there I was like, fuck you. I'm going to learn this.
I'm
going to be really good at it. And then it came from that to let me try and build a community out of it.
Right.
That's funny. I know you ain't going to say, but Tiberius also house dances now too.
Well,
He's big in the game.
no, like this is why it's so funny, because me and Ty are the same age.
Okay.
And we would like intersect at different times. Like it would be like between Ty and Stepchild, who also went by Scorp 1 back in the day, were like the main guys that I would run into at club events. And it was just that I didn't get to like really like know these guys until I started fucking with breaking. And then from that point, that was where all the kind of like, you know, wait, Ty DJs? And it's like, yeah, he DJs a lot. Like he's like City Pages like voted him like DJ of the year. Like I don't know if it was either 2 years in a row or like 1 year and then skip a year and then the next year.
Ty is one of those OGs who doesn't really come off as an OG,
right,
but you feel that presence.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
Naturally, everyone kind of gravitates towards him for like advice.
Yep.
Okay.
He is passively everyone's coach.
Yeah.
In dance, in DJing, and just
Shout out Ty. I had no idea. All right, so it's so mind blowing because this is the reason why I made the podcast. I don't know dance culture, and I think it's weird that I don't know anything about the dance culture, but we are in a city where like we should have some type of musical culture. Like I should know about this stuff. Just like, you know what I mean? Like, but again, I don't understand we're in a small city, but I'm always like, we're not connected. Like, I listen to hip hop, but I also like house music. How come I never? I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but it feels like we're all kind of like.
I think timing is everything.
Yeah,
that's facts.
And also,
facts,
to go with that, like going back to like the generational thing too, is that it's kind of if you're motivated and you really look for it, you'll find it.
Right.
But it's kind of like when you're desperate, you always seem to find like money in between the cushions, right?
Facts.
But when your pockets are fat, you don't even think to like look in the gutter or like in between the couch cushions and whatnot. So, but I'm sorry, man, I cut you off. You were gonna.
No, I was just saying, like, timing is everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what led to now.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why you're learning now. You're figuring it out now, right?
I'm always very thrown off by Minnesota, and like we're kind of cliquey. Like, you know, like if you dance, you're in this clique, and that's kind of like what you. And I'm not saying y'all. I'm just saying like in general, if you're in hip hop, you're just in this group of hip hop people, and I get that's how people are, but it's also like. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know about any other events.
We got to try to foster environments to try and expose people to different things.
Right. Yeah. I think if we had more people exposed to different things, we'd have more creative stuff happening in Minneapolis. But I think we get stuck in our...
Yeah. I mean, I think we're cliquey, but at the same time, we all know each other somehow, some way.
Right.
There's like, it's closer than a degree of separation.
Yeah. That's true.
Especially in this state.
Yeah, that's very
what
true.
I've learned throughout my years living here. I'm like,
you're one step away.
Right.
And
sometimes like dancers, like some people, depending on your perspective, some people will say it like a character flaw. They go, man, you guys all like session together and you guys all know each other and stuff. Man, y'all too nice. And but they say this coming from like major cities with like these really like long histories where you never had to worry about like leaving Brooklyn to find a party, or you never had to like leave the Bay, or you never had to do this or do that. You could just kind of be like where you were at, and you were like in the middle of a hub. Whereas like with us, because we were all scattered throughout these different pockets, everybody that's in it is like really hungry for stuff, and that's part of the reason why we cross-pollinated so much, and why we'd have open sessions and be like, you know, you'd have like two people from, you know, Warriors Crew sessioning with, you know, somebody from, you know, Rock Lord sessioning with somebody from, you know, Optimistic or whatever, and everyone would just be connected because it's like you just get along with certain people. I mean, sometimes even like our own crews are like our family, right? Like we love these people, but simultaneously it's like you like to kind of decompress. So you say, hey, I'm going to work with the person who's got more discipline over in this crew, or the person who's punctual in that crew, or the person who doesn't talk too goddamn much, or the person where I just want him to talk. It's just it's funny because everybody else in my crew just doesn't say shit. So we always get something from everybody. That's why it's like important to really like do that crop rotation in life. You know, when it comes to music, when it comes to people, when it comes to
I guess even business ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Like diversify your shit.
Right.
You know, but like one of the things when we got our chapter up and running, that's how I actually started to really get to know Ozzy, because Stepchild was like a real forward thinker on. It was less about Zulu Nation, because that eventually became like a very controversial entity, and it had a bad reputation because of all the shit that Bambaataa and whatnot. But our Twin Cities scene, that was where people that were out like onlookers were like, yo, you guys are doing this shit right, because we've gone to New York, we've gone to here, we've gone to there, and nothing gets done, or there's like a lot of infighting and, you know, all kinds of like, you know, skullduggery and whatnot. And y'all are just like, hey, we throw jams, we connect with the people, we go to other people's shit, we support people, we love everybody, you know. And that was like the important aspects. That was like the positive aspects of what we were supposed to be getting out of hip hop culture and, you know, dance culture in general. So it's funny when it's like you'd have people that would try to, you know, steal on us and say like, oh, you guys are too nice and this and that and the third. And I'm like, but that's how we know where the parties are. That's how we invite people. Like if I meet you through a podcast, and now I know to give you a flyer for my DJ event, or, you know, we're going to go and do this next week, you know, y'all should come, you know, and things like that. But like, you're right about how certain groups will be cliquey, and they'll do like a lot of stuff in I guess it kind of goes back to like human nature, right? Like we want to kind of make everything small and tribal so we can understand it and make it simple.
Right.
And the dangerous aspect of that is that even though you can kind of control like everything, you also can stagnate really quick.
Right.
And also you might not get any new information. Everybody thinks that they know it all, and there's only like 7 of you. Then that's it. But as you start to travel, and like, you know, what Ozzy was saying, you know, all of us were hungry because we didn't have the internet at our fingertips. I mean, like Ozzy came up on like that generation, and I did too, where it was like internet was just starting to move into its like mass acceleration, right? So, but we were going back to like thinking about, man, like you used to have to like beg your older brother or your cousin or your mom to drive you to this party, but you don't want to go directly to the party and have your mom be like, oh, fuck that, you're not going to go out here, you're probably going to get shot. It's like, yo, mom, no, we're going to go play basketball at these courts. And then she'd be like, all right, I guess. And then like leave you there. And then you'd have to walk like a mile to this one place, you know, just to get to the party or whatever.
Because the Lord blesses you to ride home.
You know, like please. And then the funny part was that we got a different level of appreciation out of it because it wasn't the destination, it was the journey to get there that was actually beneficial.
Right.
You're like, yo, I learned how to figure out bus routes. I know times and places where people are going to be. Sometimes you only saw that one person at those parties. So if I ever wanted to like run into people who would break, I had to go to like First Avenue or a few other spots and, you know, be like, okay, this is how I network. Whereas before that, you know, you would see it like on a movie or a video, and that was it. You were just like, oh, this is just some shit that guys in like New York or California do, but I don't think it exists in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And then
That's what I thought.
right, and then you go out and you start partying and things, and then you run into somebody who finally hits the floor, and you're like, yo, where do you learn? And it's just like, and sometimes like some people, when we don't know, we might assume that because that person did a little bit of footwork that they're like some sort of a master at this. Maybe that's just all they know. And they're like, I don't know, man, it's just the, you know, and you're like, well, what's that called? Oh, it's called the whoop-de-whoop, the get down, the boy-yo-yoing, whatever, you know, and then finally somebody says, all right, it's known as breaking or b-boying or b-girling. You know, this is where we session. You ever want to come out and get down? If you want to learn, here's a business card. There's someone who teaches over at Xenon or one of these dance studios that can put you on game and give you the basics. And then now you're sort of like, you were given like you're like Daniel-san from Karate Kid, like you're given your headband, right? You're like, oh shit, okay, now that I got my headband, I'm ready to go.
Right.
And it's like, so now you got like that little good luck charm that's gonna get you through the entire adventure, and then finally you get to a place where you're like, you know, you've been in the game for 20 years, and you've traveled out of state and cross continent, and you network with people from like here to Sierra Leone and back, you know, and it's just like, and it's an incredible thing because we, no matter where you go, you'll always seem to find those dance heads that are there. Like we all are like the ones that just gravitate towards the music and the party. And we all have this, like, again, it goes back to our tribal instincts, right? We need to get together and congregate. So like when the lockdown happened, that really fucked a lot of people's heads up, not just because of the self-imposed isolation, but because of us as dancers. We're social creatures.
Yeah, we need it. We need to be in there.
We can't even like get together and practice. And then once they like lifted it up and they said, okay, if it's like no more than, you know, X amount of people at a session, I'm like, cool. Me and Ozzy were like, all right, we're going to go here and spit in each other's mouths and practice. We don't give a fuck.
What's you guys' both opinions on practicing by yourself versus actually showing up to a session and practicing with other people?
I think there needs to be balance. So when I first started, I think my prime years in breaking was majority of it me practicing by myself in my basement, and then going to session or going to crew practices, because we didn't really, I mean, we had sessions, but it was still kind of somewhat territorial during my early years. But going to practice to kind of show people or crew practice to show them what you've done, what you've worked on. But I think there needs to be a fine balance, you know, like. But that's just speaking from how I view things and how I've ran things on my end. You know, I think it's a lot different now.
And I guess also like when you said so, when you're practicing with the crew, it's also forcing you to stick in reality, because your crew will tell you what you need to do or how you're moving. You know,
right?
You know?
Yeah, you're definitely gonna get made fun of, like, somewhere down the line.
It's all part of it.
That session. Yeah.
Or you might think that like what you were doing was hokey, but then all of a sudden Ty goes, "Do that again." And you do it again, then he's just like, and he gives you like the nod of approval. And it's like, oh, that little thing that I thought was bullshit that was going to be like a throwaway, there's actually potential. And I mean, I agree with Ozzy 1,000%, because there's something to be said, because this also blends in with like my training in martial arts, was there's like a time when you need to lab and be like down in the basement by yourself, you know, putting in that work and like sweating and like really like, you know, working on your discipline and your craft. And then there's a point where you get to bond and blend with other folks, because sometimes you get inspired when you watch other people move. Maybe there was like some impasse that you were stuck at, where all of a sudden I see the way that like MN Joe does that thread into that go down, and I'm like, oh damn, I didn't even think about it that way. And then now you can go back and rework your shit because you're seeing a different perspective, versus dancing in your own echo chamber, which is a big problem with technology, especially with the TikTok generation, where people can do something hokey on, you know, and then they get like all the likes and everything. But when you're dancing around a group of people, it's a very different vibe.
Yeah.
You know, and especially when you make this a real practice and a discipline. Like, you're not just doing this for the social approval. You're doing it for, like, self-ownership.
Yeah.
You're like, I worked really, really hard to be able to work on that transition. So nobody can take that shit away from me. Even if I battle you and you smoke me, guess what?
I still did that player to that 90. That was me.
You know, and it's just like, those were always important aspects. And I think that's like something that's why a lot of the youth, I feel like with technology, it's accelerated accessibility to like everything, but it also is like it's like a what's it called? It's like a buffet where you don't even know how to eat like right, let alone like what to eat. So you just kind of just pick whatever, and that's why you see a lot of kids that have I'm sort of a social media influencer, and I'm an online gamer, and I'm a this and I'm a that. And they're like 15 different things, but they haven't mastered one craft yet. And you know, like when we were fucking with DJing, it was just a normal transition to make from being a dancer, because you get to a point where you kind of say, all right, I listen to everybody else's mixes, but you know, I think that these two records would really go well together. I need to learn how to do this shit. And then at that point you start creating, you know, your own dish, because like you've already gone to that restaurant and you've supported that restaurant for a long time. Right. So now you kind of have an idea, and you say, but I think it needs a little bit more of this and a little less of that. And then pretty soon, you know, you've been, you know, gigging just as long as you've been dancing and things. So I think that these are all like very important aspects, and like what Ozzy was saying about finding that balance between the isolation, because you have to make use of like that meditative time, and you know, working on something where you hold yourself accountable and nobody else is like behind you, you know, pushing you or anything. But then also you have those times where you show up and you go, listen, there's 15 of us here, and I'm just gonna stand against the wall. Fuck that. You know, I better put what I've been labbing into practical application. I'm gonna go on a run now. I'm gonna see if I can throw this set the way that I've been practicing in my basement. And then, you know, you watch somebody and you see him like throw some stuff, and you go, yo, that's some new shit. You know, man, how you've been getting dirty. Okay. You know, I see you. You know, and then other times you'd be like, whack. That's whack. It's fucking whack. Work on that. And then you're like, damn, I thought that was really good. And they're like, no, it was whack. But like, you know, even with Ty and Ozzy, you know, Ty is like he's like really good at being able to throw something at you, because he knows how to motivate you. He knows like the right thing to say to get you pissed or to get you introspective or what have you. And then you go and you push it. Right. Because and that's why he says it to you. Right. Because he's like, well, I'm not saying this for my own edification. I'm not saying this just so I can like look good in front of you and treat you like shit.
1 second. Can you check that camera? If we take a quick break, if maybe we should do that. But is that camera still running?
Commercial break?
No, if it's not red around the rim, it's not running.
Oh no!
So those two are going.
Okay.
I think the phone. You want to check the phone? I think the phone's going though.
Yep,
You guys need a break? Are you guys good? You guys want to fill up on drinks? No, I'm all good. I mean, we can just say it's a break, or we can just cut commercial this break or whatever. But so we're taking a break. Blah blah blah.
This has been brought to you by Hims.
Back at it. Did you drop your cup? I got one. We cut you off, man, but yeah, like dance is dope, because dance reminds me a lot, like, I know it's it may not be the same type of analogy, but basketball. Where like you can train by yourself, you can work on your craft, but it takes for you to be with your team to know where you're at. Right. With what you were working on for that summer or that time you're by yourself.
I mean, there's a subculture in everything, right?
Yep.
And that's what brings in a lot of similarities. It could be fucking chess.
Yep.
And there's a subculture in chess.
Yep.
It's the same ideology, same philosophy, where it's like I'm gonna train by myself. I'm gonna work on these moves and know these variations and these openings. And then once I get together with my other guys, then I'm gonna use these openings on them. Well, it's like the same thing for dance, you know. Specifically, I'm talking specifically on breaking because there is a different mentality between house and house dancing and breaking.
What's the key standout on the mentality wise between house and breaking?
You know, house is more so freedom based, and this is just my opinion. This is what I felt doing it. It's more freedom based. It's jokingly the retirement for b-boys and b-girls. It was basically my retirement from breaking.
It is easy on the body.
It's a lot easier.
From breaking, bro.
Yeah, it's a lot easier. It's not as stressful. It's not as intense. And not saying that breaking has to be like that, but I mean, you know, I'm coming from a generation where it literally was that. Okay. You know, where it was like, I'm gonna fucking smoke this bitch and take his head off, and I'm trying to make him quit.
Yep.
You know, that's my main objective for tonight. I'm gonna clown this motherfucker. I'm gonna make him quit. Right? Where house is like, you and I are gonna fucking dance to this song, and we're gonna try and get to it together, get through it together, and we're gonna play a game.
Right.
You know, the game is, what can we both do to this?
Right.
Now,
it's a question and an answer.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Here's where there's still competitions. The competitions is a competition, right?
Right.
But if you look at the house dancers that brought a lot of competition in, they were former b-boys and b-girls themselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that attitude still came in, but now there's more of a smile, and there's not really a middle finger.
Right.
You know, it's like it's just like, you know, there's not really a lot of burns or anything like that going on in house. You know, it's more so let's see what we can do to this together.
So with every dance form, like the Memphis, you know, that kind of like, what do they call Memphis
juking?
Memphis
yeah, that's the like. Is it different types of like?
That's
you know what I'm trying to have, like different cultures. Like, do they battle?
So I can't speak on that.
Everything, right?
You know, because I'm not a part of that scene.
Right, exactly.
Do I know people in that scene? Absolutely. I know a good amount of people in that scene. But I'm not a part of it. I've never really thought about going into it or visiting it because it's just not in my, it's not on my plate right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
You know, but like breaking, I could tell you all about that.
It's all like, I wonder, like, does every dance culture have their own their own?
They have competitions,
culture.
But not so much in the. And I know what you're asking, if it's battle versus competition, but I think in that sense
it's whatever.
House and breaking, we have battles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like in other dance disciplines like ballet, they don't have ballet battles.
Ballets don't battle, right?
Oh, like, no, they have performances and whatnot.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I think, the general image of dance today in like the public eye is like more so choreo based. So where they see like people, like 2 or 3 or 4 people or like a big group doing synchronized movement to music, right? That's like the general look today. And those are more so competitions more than anything, and battles are under the competition umbrella, but it's more freestyle based, and rather than choreo based.
Well,
so.
Okay.
You look at like historically too, right? Like what is ballet? Ballet is a polished and refined compilation of various folk dances that were all put together and assembled, like techniques from different folk dances made and refined and perfected, and then taught everywhere from like France to the eastern part of Russia. And when you see what we do, like typically like we refer to as like street style, in various incarnations of it, including like juking and things like that. They're always born out of like a social aspect, right? They come from like folks, from people, and then after time and refinement, and of course subsequently like competitions become a thing later, where they say, okay, we want to know. When back in the day it used to just be who was the best at the barbecue or the gathering or this or that or the third. Now it's like we want to find out of like who's the baddest on the block. Now it's like of 10 blocks, of all city, of the state, of the nation. So I think it's just that like with breaking now, you're seeing it where it's starting to make its way into like an Olympic stage.
Yeah.
And, who knows with the evolution of breaking if it's ever going to get to a place where it's on that type of level of,
Right.
you trained at the Bolshoi or something, and it's just like, oh, I trained at the school of.
Do you think we're going to make it past? Because I feel like we're almost repeating what was happening in the 90s when breaking went to the underground scene again. Because it was going mainstream for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden.
Well, everything is cyclic, right? I mean, from the seasons to styles. Like we were just talking about this the other day on our podcast, and we were talking about like fashion in house and how everything is starting to go back to a baggy 90s aesthetic, whereas just a couple of years ago, people were wearing like things that were a lot more form-fitting. And so people are starting to kind of get to a place of like, whenever you find that something's getting played out or stagnant or needs to be shaken up, you go to different resources. And, even like the aspect of battling, this is not unheard of in Black culture in general, like specifically Black American culture, going back to like the times of like playing the dozens or cutting heads, right? Like you would see blues musicians that would basically make a promise. Like they're like, yo, I can light your ass up. And I'm so confident in my skills on this guitar that if I fail, you get to take a straight razor to my face in front of everybody, right? And then also, if I got a bankroll in my pocket, I give you that bread, right? Like people would put shit on the line because this is like, yo, this is my life. This is what I do. So it just seems to be that I think that like we're really competition, like the actual like purpose of competition is for like kind of like forging, and also kind of knowing like a yardstick of like where your skills kind of lie, right? Like this is like a measuring place. But at the same time, if you don't have the art and the expressionistic side of it, then now this is basically becoming athletics, right? And that becomes a problem, and that's why I think a lot of people, even in like the breaking scene, are kind of wanting to go back to being more artsy-fartsy with it, because there's a point where it's like you're a grand champion at this competitive dance where you're being judged by like a tri-panel of people, but are you even really dancing, or are you just really good at winning?
And that's why I kind of ask, like, is the culture the same with every group? Because that's what I'm like, is it about the art still, or is it about you just being good at it?
Well, it's like, think about this in basketball, right? The difference between when you watch like the 3-on-3 street ball competitions that happen, right? There's an aesthetic and artistic aspect of it.
Fact.
It's not just the factual, like how many points did you score? It's how you did, right? It's the presentation of it, right? Because a point is a point. That's just mathematical. So, when it's in the NBA, I mean, you might show off a little bit, do some like under the leg shit. Oh damn.
Shout out to Maker's Mark.
Yes, Maker's Mark whiskey.
Brought to you by
Killing
Maker's
motherfuckers.
That was me earlier. I was like,
Yo, that's a kick right to the throat from Kentucky.
I feel you.
But yeah,
cool.
yes,
We
tears
good.
in my eyes. But like you see the difference in when you watch like an NBA game and you see someone just decide to put a little bit of pepper on some shit, right? Just because they're like, yo, man, we're ahead a couple of points. I'm gonna do a little thing, right? And then like when you see like street ball and you're watching like especially like the and one tapes,
Man,
a lot of people forget that the and one tapes, the reason why that shit was so hot was because they did the same route again. I'm gonna cite skateboarding. Skateboarding was one of the first sports that did video documentation. Even more so than breaking did. Breaking, it was like you had to go to the boogie down to see this shit and risk life and limb to like really do that until they finally started putting it in movies. But in street skating, it was like any idiot with a camera could just skate behind you and get the run. And then after the run, it was like, okay, well, this is boring just watching people do this shit. Let's do like a little skit or something funny. And of course, subsequently, you get things like Jackass, and you get people who were street skaters that were filming that eventually become big-time directors. You get Spike Jonze and people doing music videos, and there's an aesthetic. And one was like, yo, like that's what we do. Like, let's put this shit on camera. So people would like, you'd be sitting in a barbershop just chilling, chopping it up, and someone would have an and one tape playing as if you were in a skate shop. you know, and you'd be sitting there just watching this shit and be like, oh damn,
Who the hell
you
was
know?
that?
Yeah,
With hot sauce.
and you know, and breaking in the 90s really was like, yo, we don't need a film crew. Everyone's got a video camera. So the technology helps dictate, much like house. It's whenever a piece of tech advances it and it makes it where you don't have to make it 100% from scratch,
Right.
it makes it a little bit easier and more accessible for the artist.
Right.
Now that person says, well, hey, I don't have a 30-piece orchestra to make this disco song, but what I do have is these 2 records that I can mix together and keep the party going. So it just kind of goes back to like that yin and that yang balance between, you know, the art versus the discipline. And if you don't know how to walk the line, pretty soon you get to a point where it's like, even with like breaking, where people can like figure out a code and go, oh, I figured out how to hack the win, right? I know what run I need to do, how to do this, what those judges are looking for, and they can kind of figure out how to play the game and, you know, and win. And then you see somebody who's like, yo, they never compete, and they're like a myth. They're like, yeah, but if they get down in the cypher, oh shit, really? Like, you know, yo, we were out at this place over in Canada, and B-Boy Bounce got in the circle, and he fucking, and yo, you don't understand, it was like birds in flight, you know, and people just be like, yo, it was like sacred geometry, and people are just like tripping out. And like when we went to New York and we were at Funkbox, it was like that we saw the natural habitat of what we do, and I was just so inspired and so moved by that. And I was just like, bro, like this is, you know, this was like finally getting to go to, you know, like you've read about it in books, and now you finally get to see it alive, and like you can taste it and smell it and feel it in your chest. Like I told Ozzy when I first walked in, it felt like I jumped into a pool, like up to my chest, and you can barely breathe for a couple seconds because the weight of the water is like pushing on. The sound was like this, and I was like, because even at First Ave, when they had the levels completely cranked, that's a big concrete building, right? So the acoustics are always like hit and miss.
Right.
This was like a condensed club. Tony Touch was on the decks, and we walk in there, and I couldn't breathe. I was going like, you know. So these are the things that like really, that's the stuff that I think is like important to have as like a counterweight. Otherwise, it's going to be too much about the business and about making money and about how many likes you got and how many hits you got and all the mathematical shit that you can always quantize. But you need to have that, you know, uncrunchable number, that 3.14 pi. That's the artistic expression. It's the fuck it. That's the competition. I'm going to go over here in the corner with these fools and just go off.
Do my thing.
And just, you know, and then sometimes you go in there and you take the W or whatever you want to go do. But then you also are ciphering and you're having a fucking blast because you're like with a bunch of these other clowns vibing and just passing the ball behind your back, and the other person's doing a layup, you know, and it's just like, and it's this organic exchange. And like what Ozzy was saying with house is that breaking, it's like I'm trying to take from you if we're battling, right? If I'm not just ciphering, but I'm battling you, I'm trying to take from you because you're in my circle. I'm trying to force you out of my cipher. But what I personally feel in house is like, how do we keep the energy flowing? Because it sucks when you go off and you do something and then the vibe just dies.
Right.
Everyone's like, I'm not gonna go.
I mean, you have also been there when you're like doing a cipher and like that one person. I mean, I don't diss on anybody that doesn't this, but that person who's clearly had too much to drink steps in the cipher and just kills
Backflip Chad. Shout out to Backflip Chad.
And you're just like, all right, party's done, y'all. Let's make a new one.
And see, and that's the person that pisses on the campfire.
Yeah.
You're like, it was funny, but simultaneously now everything smells like maple syrup, and we got to go make another fire over here. Right. You know, but if a person is truly like aware, and this is another thing, like we talk about it all the time about cipher etiquette and spatial awareness. There's a conversation going on.
Yep.
So if I jump in and I say something, and then Ozzy has like a retort to that, and then you jump in and you say something, and then finally you jump in and say something. What the magic happens when it's all within context, right? Like maybe I hit an accent. I'm doing something to like the tick, tick, to tick, tick, to tick, right? And then Ozzy sees that. So then when he jumps in on that round and I sock him in, he all of a sudden tick, tick, to tick, tick, to tick. And then you find something that you do differently, but you're still hearing the tick. We're all like acknowledging You're like, yo, you're hearing this,
we're
right?
passing the rock at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Let's keep it moving.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
you're
you're not stopping and going, wait a minute, you took the ball and put it behind your back and threw it at me. I wasn't ready for that.
It doesn't matter. I got it.
It was
Let's
like,
go.
no, you were just like, you were so in the moment that if the ball was there, great. If it wasn't there, you were still running up towards the rim anyway.
I know nothing about dance, but all that is sports to me. Like it's chemistry. It seems like with house, you need to have the chemistry.
Right.
That night.
Look,
if you don't have it that night, you're just not on.
I was telling people, I said, you want to know the greatest B-boy movie that was never, well, it was unintentionally a breaking movie, was Coach Carter. That, if that was about breaking, that's what I felt that Planet B-Boy, or was it Planet B-Boy or no, Battle of the Year, when they made the Battle of the Year movie, they were trying to emulate Coach Carter. But if they would have had Coach Carter be about breaking, right then and there. Like,
break that down for me, brother, because it makes sense, but I need to hear it.
Because, all right, look, hear me out on this one, all right? All right, you already had, what's his face? Chatham, I can't even say his name. Tanning Chatham, Magic Mike, right?
Yeah,
he already comes from a dance background. Rick Gonzalez, right? He's also a New Yorker, Boricua, right? Like, he comes from New York, and I believe he comes from the Bronx.
He's the dude who, his cousin got,
Yeah. So, like, you already have, like, aspects of this where it wouldn't have been very far off. I think there was another movie that was also teetering on that, but it was about ballroom dancing. It was that movie that Antonio Banderas was in with Bosco, Rufio, Dante Bosco, right? And it was that one where it's like, you know, teacher comes in, bunch of unruly kids, and then he goes, hey, I'm going to teach these guys a skill. And then, you know, and that's like, so I felt like they could have done that at that moment in time, but then they let it go a little bit too far away. And also because Hollywood is always like, they're never like fully on to current events. They don't really have their finger on the pulse of the underground. So they usually make a movie about skateboarding like 3 or 4 years after it already hit like its high point. Yeah. And now they're making the movie about skateboarding. What's up with this skateboarding? What's up with this breakdancing? You know? So it's like by the time of like 80, like when they were doing like breaking and shit, and motherfuckers were dressing in like studded belts and parachute pants and stuff, it was kind of like there was that disconnect already. Because it was like, yo, this isn't really like representative of what this was. That was kind of more of like the exploitation era of it. So but you see that, and then you see in those the
part of that class
how they can find like a reflection of
let's take a break.
Oh, did we lose the camera?
Issues.
We're losing all the cameras, y'all.
Y'all, we're back. Had some things we had to figure out, but we're good. And we're talking about Coach Carter. We're talking about how that could easily be a dance movie. And so, why?
Well, the main thing was, you know, because like a lot of people, they forget that like when you're making a movie, you have to have people that are able to act and express, just like with dance, right? The dancing, that's why it's such a fine line, and it's great when you run into people who are cross-trained in something. Like, for instance, Cuba Gooding Jr., right? He's a great example. He was a b-boy. So when you see him, when he busts that at the touchdown dance, and Jerry Maguire, when he busts the swipe into the 90, and everyone lost their shit. And I was just like, yeah, well, he's from fucking New York. What do you expect?
Same with old dude Iron Man 2, the villain. He was cross-trained.
Yep, and I mean, but there's like other people too, like Pauly Shore, right?
Yeah.
Pauly Shore. Everyone's all like, oh, the whistle. But guess what? He kicked it with a bunch of fucking Samoan cats from like Carson City, and he was a popper. He was a funk stylist, and he also would like learn how to break and shit. So while he's attached to like that legacy of MTV and also his mom Mitzi Shore owning the Comedy Store, he also was like in hip hop culture. Like he fucked with this shit. And there was other people that were skaters. Like you would talk to certain stand-up comedians. that, you know, used to skateboard or still skateboard. David Spade was a good example of that. And so and those are the people that you can use in those types of situations where you say, hey, listen, we're doing a casting call, but we're really looking for actors who have like a dance background, as opposed to like, oh, I'm really good at convincing you that I can dance, but then we need to throw in the double. And I think that like, you know, with movies like that, you have to figure out some sort of a way to make the audience care about the characters, and then simultaneously be genuine with the expression of the art. That's why Beat Street, a lot of people loved Beat Street, because even though there were certain parts of it that were, you know, hokey here and there, it was like they were showing hip hop in its entirety versus like, and I'm not shitting on the movie Breakin' or Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo, because the dancing was phenomenal. Everybody was in there was legit, but it was like everyone's dressed in fluorescent, and it's like we're all prancing through the streets of LA, and I'm like, that doesn't fucking happen.
Beat Street kept it straight.
Kept it exactly. It was like, yo, what happened to Tito Reyes? Oh, there was a fire.
Right.
Wait, Tito was in a fire? No, the landlord torched the... Like, they were fucking telling you, they were giving you all these goddamn gems about life in the South Bronx. And they were saying, like, yo, even the party, right? They were like, yo, they were plugging into the street lamp across the street and running the line through and everything. And it was like, they were giving you hip hop 101.
Right.
And then they try to kind of shoehorn in like a love story and, you know, this and that and the third. But it was like, that's what I appreciated about movies like that. And of course, the most like authentic aspect of it was the battle between Rocksteady and New York City Breakers at the Roxy, because it was like, that was an actual battle. That was like they really battled.
They really danced,
you know. And the thing was that they didn't do a bunch of cuts. It wasn't like a 3-month scene where they said, okay, now I want you to do this move and do this. They just basically like ran 3 cameras and just said, go.
Get it.
And of course, Rocksteady was like, well, we're supposed to be like the heel and the bad guy, but still, man, fuck New York City Breakers. And New York City Breakers was like, yeah, fuck Rocksteady. So they went at each other, right? And it was like, that was dope. That was the dope right there. And we were talking about this before about like Jonah Hill's movie, the mid-90s, and how much of a service that was to skateboarding culture from that era and street skating culture. Because now it's like you got kids that do skateboard that also are delving into acting, who are able to authentically play these roles and give you a feeling of like, you know, realism to this. So it was funny because I remember like having people watch that movie and they thought that was filmed in the mid-90s. And it was like, and there were only like a couple of little tells where you hear somebody say some shit and I'd be like, that's slightly a new term. You know, but otherwise this movie was authentic. So I'm still hoping for the day that somebody could do that either with House, because they've been talking about like doing a movie about the warehouse and about Frankie Knuckles and about the Chicago legacy. So that would be a dope thing to do.
Frankie Knuckles.
Rest in peace, Frankie Knuckles, and also Ron Hardy. And big shout out to all the pioneers.
And shout out Chicago, because I went all that in Chicago at an art museum that put me on. And also there's an artist I can't think of the name right now, in the 80s, but I learned all about house music and this artist. So yeah, shout out Chicago, because I didn't know until I went to Chicago that they were the home of house music. And so that's dope, man. Like, I learned so much. But like, what do you guys do outside of, you know, dancing and DJing and
cocaine,
being cool as fuck?
Lots of cocaine.
I am aware Ozzy dabbles in commercial real estate.
Yes.
Golfing, right?
Before we go into that, is there something from dance as transition benefited you in your professional lifestyle as a commercial real estate agent?
Slightly. Mentality, kind of hard to say, you know.
What about discipline-wise?
Discipline, honestly, I don't really think of dance when I'm working.
Okay.
But the only reason to why it's slightly benefited is because my first clients were dancers in commercial real estate.
Okay.
So, like, I helped 3 studios open up.
Okay.
I found them space. So, the Workroom in Roseville, which is a studio you've been to.
Yeah.
Cypher Side, helped them find both of their locations.
Also help with Cypher Side as well.
Yep. And then Afutai Dance Company, the Haitian dance company, that helped them find their studio in Golden Valley. So it's absolutely, like I think my years in dancing, my reputation in the dancing here has had a lot to do with that. Where they're like, wow, I can go to someone I know and I'm familiar with and hopefully holds himself correct in the dance community and trust them with my business. So yeah, absolutely. Dance has definitely had an impact on that. But in terms of like discipline-wise mentality,
so you already kind of had that.
I kind of already had, yeah. Like honestly, because the neighborhood I grew up in, it was like that was already there before. Before dance. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like dancing to me was just the movement aspect of it, and like I guess more knowledge in music. Per se.
Yeah, because you're from a very musical area, like the Bay.
I mean, dance amplified it. Let's just say that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it amplified it, but like it kind of was already there.
Right.
But you were also involved with like what the new opening of the Asia Mall, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, shit.
How was that? Did you facilitate like the wholesale or the whole?
So
what was your process of being involved with that?
Oh yeah, so my colleague Marshall, who I mentioned earlier, he was the broker behind that. So he helped them find the location, which used to be like a former Gander Mountain. It's located in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, and then they like went on a bidding war between them and Tesla and beat Tesla.
Oh wow!
Yeah, which was hilarious.
Was this when the Twitter thing was happening? Oh.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, Elon was distracted, and then all of a sudden they just like barraged him with pho.
right. No, it's like Marshall was just able to sell him a story, sell the owners of Gander Mountain a story on why the Asia Mall would benefit the community, not just the community, but Minnesota as a whole, which it already has.
Right.
And then me being a part of Marshall's team, he brought us in to find the tenants for the mall. So I want to say like 90% of the tenants that you see in there came from me and my colleagues Marshall and Winnie.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So like
Clap it up.
Yeah.
Crunchy's Korean
Big
hot
moves.
dog, Dozy Rack, Pho Mai, all those home tastes, every one of them. They're all from us. And now it's 100% full too. So like there's no vacancies or anything like that.
Wait, from launch, you guys had it at 100% occupancy, pretty much.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this place hasn't been open over a year, but it's already at 100% occupancy.
Yeah, it's just
That's
everyone's
big.
under construction. So the tenants that aren't open are still under construction.
Yeah. But pretty much you guys sold the space even before the space was open.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
But there were a lot of naysayers, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And right now, like, I'm kind of laughing about it. Like, there's this one lady,
Motivation.
I won't mention her name, but she comes across this. Just know it's you.
Oh, you are.
Yeah, fuck you.
Bop, 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 bop.
But we gave her and her clients a tour, and her clients were the tenants that we were trying to bring in. And, she's really well known for deciphering whether a restaurant will succeed in a place. That's her profession, and respect it.
Supposed to
great,
consult.
but she's really intense. So right off the bat, she's like, "Yeah, this isn't gonna work. This place is gonna get shut down. It's not gonna work. It's never gonna work here. It's not gonna open. Like this whole place will not succeed."
Boy, did you shit in her cereal.
Well,
Black
she kind of
Rose
shit in her own
Zombie,
cereal
yes.
because now she's trying to work with us.
Oh,
Wow.
She's like, hey, this tastes really good, guys.
Yeah.
Stand on
So,
it. Hey,
I'm
don't
sorry.
stand on that.
So, but here's the thing. Like me, and maybe it's a zodiac thing. I don't. I'm a Scorpio, so I kind of have a lot of pity.
Shout out
So-
Scorpio.
But so when somebody fucks me over, or when somebody disrespects me, I'm gonna come back at you like 100. But it's gonna be more of like a right hook, not to your chin, but to your gut.
Yep.
Right, like
You come back
where it
like I
really
told you
counts.
You're
so.
gonna see it, but so Marshall, like he's talking with her over the phone and shit, like trying, like he's a sincere guy, being the Leo he is, sincere guy and whatnot.
Shout out Leos.
Yeah, and and
Got two on
and
the
like
show. All right.
forgiving and whatnot, and I was like, was that lady that kind of dissed you and basically dissed us and said this wasn't gonna open? He's like, yeah, I'm like, what does she need? He's like, well, she kind of needs our help. I was like, oh, she needs your help.
Exactly.
You're like,
I'm not gonna work with her.
and you want to know the b-boy side of it? It's like, yo, put her on video.
Got him.
You're like, that's the most b-boy that I've gotten this entire time. Aside from that time that I all of a sudden
I'm thinking about dance now.
grab my balls in front of finisher after we closed on this.
So at Asia Mall, that's it's still in the soft opening phase. We're gonna have the full grand opening by fall, and the full grand opening entails all the tenants being open.
Yeah.
But it's soft opening. If you do go, I don't know if you guys have gone yet.
Yeah, I mean, from knowing the fact that somebody I know put it on, I was like, yeah, I got to check it out.
Yeah.
I also got to flex with my
I'm gonna
people. I was
check
like,
it
yeah,
out.
I know who facilitated this.
Go during the week, weekdays.
Yes.
Because you will find parking.
Yep.
Right now we have a parking issue. It's there.
But I feel like that's a good problem
good
to
issue.
have.
it's a great
Right.
issue.
Yes.
It's a great issue, but at the same time, imagine how much more business we could be doing.
Yeah, exactly. If
So-
you made it more convenient.
Yeah, exactly. So we're working with the city because I'm talking as if I own the fucking place. I'm just one of the leasing agents, leasing partners.
But you're heavily involved being a leasing
involved,
agent.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is your baby right now until it's
it
done.
really is. But right now we're working with ownership because they own a big parcel of land that's like on the front of it, but it's wetlands. So we're trying to work on expanding the parking out more towards that way. It's just a whole lot of fucking engineering and architecture involved in that though. But the parking's gonna happen. We're gonna get more parking.
I know it all sounds like sunshine and rainbows right now when you're explaining the end process, but what was the most challenging part on all of this?
For the Asia Mall?
Yeah, or even just the whole process of facilitating something that big, because it's different dealing with like private property versus commercial real estate. Which I know a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm gonna jump into it, but I don't think a lot of people understand like what sales and being in that level involves to deliver.
I would say the biggest challenge in any type of commercial deal is the city. When the city gets involved, expect delays. Delays upon delays upon delays. If anything that has restaurants, expect delays from the health department, expect delays from permitting, all that shit. So those were just the general problems that we had, which is honestly what everyone goes through in commercial real estate. It's very seldom to where somebody in commercial real estate doesn't go through that. So that's honestly what it is. And the original goal was to open the Asia Mall in May of 2021. And we just opened, and we soft opened in November of 2022. And that was due to construction delays in materials that were getting shipped from China, all this shit. And then permitting, then the city, Hennepin County, all that fun stuff.
I feel like I know a lot of this because my girlfriend was an architect, so like everything took longer than they thought it would. That's crazy.
Exactly. That's why I laugh when one thing we're really notorious for is trying to get bids from contractors and whatnot. And then when they say, "Oh, we'll get this done in 3 months," no, you won't. 3 months
Don't lie
times
to
2.
me.
Being graciously optimistic.
Yeah, like that's nice.
And so dope. What do you do outside of DJing, dancing? What other things do you do?
I work for a credit union that is based out of St. Paul. We have a couple of different locations. No, Ideal.
Oh.
Ideal Credit Union. They used to be formerly PCU.
Okay.
So they were only a postal credit union for like postal employees, and like if you were your family member was in the post office for years, you'd be, grandfathered in. And then they went public probably about like 10 or 12 years ago, give or take. And I ended up getting a job with them. And I work for the accounting and payments division. I basically do like all the back end stuff. So if you're doing like,
It's more like accounts receivable and all of that. Or what?
well, yeah, like so like if it was like electronic transfers, or if there's like I used to specifically work in debit disputes, but then I switched into a
Hi
different.
to your job. No.
So it was always like mad funny when like I'd be sitting here and like somebody would be like, "Oh yeah, this fucking thing happened," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's because you don't have an RF blocker on your wallet," and somebody got your shit from your chip. Damn. Because, and they're just like, how do you know about that? And I'm like, yo, I know everything.
I'm just here. Like,
I'm turnstile. I'm everywhere, bitch. What? And, but yeah, so, I've been doing that for a number of years. I also had done security for a number of years, actually a long time. Like,
what kind of security? Like personal or like property security? Or what?
Initially I was doing security based off of contract, and I was at a building that used to be the State Farm Regional Office. I started working there when the regional office was still at full capacity, and then a couple years later, they emptied everything out, and they ended up like leasing a building over in like Mendota Heights. So we were just guarding this empty building for like 13 years.
Oh wow!
So I was just there, and
that's easy money, right?
No, it was hella funny because Ozzy even came out. He came out one day. He was just like, "Yo, man, I wanted to come out and chat you up and whatnot." I'm like, "All right, cool. Come over to the north door." Let his ass in, and he's like, "All right, is this cool? Like, is there gonna be like your boss and everything?" I'm like, "Bro, I'm in an empty building right now," and he's just like, "Oh, okay, bet." So then he's like, "What do you do around here?" Like, I walk around, I work out, I dance. Like, so people were just like, "Oh shit, you didn't make it to session, but you haven't like lost a step." And it's like, "Yeah, 'cause I'm fucking practicing." And then it was dope because I was working 4 to midnight, which meant that Ozzy would hit me up at like 10:50 and be like, "Hey man, we're still over at Tom Pham's Wondrous or this place or that place. You gonna come through?" I'm like, "Bet, I'm done at midnight."
Yeah.
So I'd get over there and everyone's got like a little bit of loosey goosey, the drinks special kind of kicks in and whatnot, and then show up and it's like, "Yo, Styles!" I'd have a change of clothes in the fucking the trunk of my car, like I was like, like I was some like girl on the town and shit, where she just like, "Yo, I don't know if I'm gonna be dancing, so I'm gonna need my dress and shit." So I'd like get done with like my uniform, and then I have like my dance shit, like 7 pairs of shoes in there and everything. And you open that shit up, it looked like I lived in my car, and then I just go park, come out, dance for a few hours, and then I didn't have to get up because I had to work tomorrow at 4.
So you have all night.
Bet.
That's
So
fire.
So
I
yeah.
didn't have a job like that.
Yes. But then the thing too about that, and like Ozzy will agree with me on this because we've had conversations about this, is that as dancers we're really used to living uncomfortably, and like if you have to sleep on a floor or a futon mat without the rest of it, or anything, you can make do and adapt because of our dance background. But then you kind of get to a point where you go, "Listen, I can't keep buying used cars that are like $300, like will run for 3 months and then die on me. I need to have some sort of equity. I need to have other responsibilities. I need to like move forward with my life." So then what, kind of to answer like your question about it, like what I got from dance that I applied into life.
Thank you for bringing that back, because I was going to
Yes,
ask you that.
because this is the real fucking journalism, son.
It was supposed to be asked that
Real
as well.
fucking journalism here, man. What do you think you're dealing with, Joey
Transition
Bananas?
from dancing to
The
your
fuck outta
professional
here.
lifestyle.
So I answer all the hard questions, but like one of the things that I really realized when I went back, because I remember one time my old man even asked me, he goes, "Why do you do this? Like you drive like all the way across the Twin Cities to go practice with these people, so many days a week. You dance at these competitions. You might win, you might lose, but it's not like a sustainable thing. So why are you doing this?" And there's a thing about kind of like, what was it, like I think it was like Thoreau who said something about like, we're living these lives of quiet desperation, where we kind of go through and we're like waiting and hoping for like something magical to happen, and it never does. And then we realize now there's more sand in the bottom of the hourglass than there was at the top, right? And it's like all your best days are behind you, and what do you have to show for it? But maybe a mortgage, you might have a family, but you're just kind of like burnt out, and all you do is like you wake up, you work, you come home, you check out on Netflix, and then you go to sleep, repeat. And dance was a level of ownership. It was something that you could say, "This is me. This is who and what I am. This is," and everything that I get from this is what I put into it. So if I fucking suck, it's because I did not practice. You have ultimate accountability with this shit. Sadly, you run into dancers who also have like a diluted sense whether it's entitlement or you overbelieve in your skills or you think that the world owes you. But like one of the things that I pulled from this, and this is why my name is Turnstile, is that there's no easy passes. I'm going to have to pay either by coin or by flesh, or jumping the turnstile or sliding under the turnstile and getting chased by the MTA. Whatever it is, I'm going to have to fucking earn this because it's never going to be given to me.
There's a quote, like, is it Epictet? He said, there is no easy way.
Yeah.
It's nights of hard work, struggle.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
So, like, that's life.
Yeah.
Right. And
that's what life is.
And most of the time what we run into is like a person, this is kind of like why I loved A Bronx Tale, right? The De Niro speech that he gives talking about the difference between the working man being deemed as a sucker versus the wise guy. The wise guy knows all the angles, but he's always having to watch over his back. He's always got to, he can't trust anybody. He's got to go through life constantly on the wire. And, you also saw that in Goodfellas, right? The working man's a sucker, and we knew what the fuck we were doing, and this. We could take it if we wanted to, and all that shit. And Bobby De Niro's character in that movie was saying, like, see one of these guys get up at, 6 o'clock in the morning. He's like, I'm the tough guy. I do this day in and day out. You know how many times I got to drive that bus so you can eat steak?
Right.
That kind of shit.
Right.
And it's like there's a level of pride when you look back and say you invented a move or you won this competition. And even though it's trivial because, in 100 years, who's going to remember, who's going to give a shit? But in that moment, you were the king of the moment, right? You worked really super hard and you were able to get checkmate. And that's why it's funny when people will come in and they'll kind of roll their eyes at some shit and look at you, dance or whatever, big deal and all that kind of stuff. But they turn around like secretly and they go like, I was never a good dancer. I never played music. I never did any of these types of things.
Say it again?
Yeah, I wish I could do that. That pretty much.
Right. I wish I could. And we were talking about this before on our podcast about Achilles. And in the movie Troy, when the runner shows up to him and says, this guy that you're supposed to go fight, he's the biggest person I've ever seen. I wouldn't fight him. He's like, that's why no one's going to remember your name.
No one's going to remember you.
It's like, yo, little ass bitch.
Exactly.
You can live till you die.
Right.
You can die, sooner than you want to, but live in like.
Right.
Like, that's what
and
it is, man.
That's Bushido. That's like finding life in every single moment because at any given moment, it can be taken from you. Nothing is promised. Nothing is guaranteed except for death and taxes.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like
that's
Ben Franklin.
So like, you know what I'm saying? Like every moment, like think small of yourself but highly of the world. Like live in the world.
Yep, and that's Musashi right there.
Yeah, like
Be great.
What's funny with that I wish moment for me when I started breaking, that was like the beginning of YouTube, as you were saying, like the internet wasn't fully even blown. That was like literally the start of even MySpace to how people could network. But I remember like seeing somebody breaking and the most top hit comment at the time of YouTube. You couldn't like comments, but comments would stick if you were the first person to comment.
Right.
But the first comment was some guy saying, I wish I could do that.
Oh,
The second comment was some guy, well, stop wishing and start practicing.
Yep.
I'm not going to lie to you. The minute I read that, I was like, fuck, I'm going to get to practicing.
Right.
No, that's how I started breaking.
This motherfucker is the one who got me DJing. And it was because I had already fucked with DJing prior. When I first moved back down to the Twin Cities, I still had turntables and mixer. And then I sold all my equipment because I had to make rent, because nobody else was helping me. So it was kind of like, fuck, man. But I still had all my records. And then when Ozzy was talking about it, we were just chit-chatting. And at some point, I said something about like, yeah, man, I really wish I would have stuck with DJing. And he's just like, pick it back up. And I'm like, oh, yeah, but it's too hard. And he's just like, bullshit. It was just like, and see, this is again the need of the crew. You need the crew to be able to objectively hold the mirror up to you to say, yo, like, if you want this bad enough, it's not going to be difficult. It's not going to be painful because the juice is worth the squeeze.
Yep.
And in house, the thing about that is that what we're trying to chase is we're trying to chase the vibe, the feeling, and especially the feeling of letting go and like release, because we got so many hardships in our day, and you're going through your 9 to 5, your environment, maybe if you have to like suppress your sexuality or other aspects of who you are as a person because you have to keep up appearances or, not, ruffle like the feathers of the social norm. And then now you've got, 7 hours to just be you, unapologetically you. And that place is like where you go to dance, to feel free, to be able to connect with people. And they're like your club folks, right? Like you never get to see them like the rest of the week. But then all of a sudden, as soon as you walk in and fucking so-and-so is right there, yo! And then like, and it's funny because it's not even like conversations. It's all kinetic movement. It's conversations through movement that people, we vibe off of as well. People go like, oh, I'd really like to talk to you sometime and stuff. But I know people from like for years that I still can't even remember their name because they're just they're club homies. Yep. And you go, oh shit, what's her name? What's his name? That person, that.
Earlier you mentioned about being in a different, and like being even in different countries and even how dancers migrate, because it's funny because it's like in all my traveling, it's weird. Like we might not speak the same language, right? But I'll be hanging around this guy for a whole weekend just because we both dance and we both vibe, and it's a weird universal language.
There's a funny story Ozzy was telling me about when it was one of the guys from Flying Steps and Russian Mike. And they're basically like one guy speaks German and broken English, and the other guy speaks Russian and now broken English, and they're both trying to talk after like a whole weekend of dancing, and it was like the funniest, most awkward thing to have, where and it's just like but it's such a beautiful thing.
It is at the same time. I mean, really.
I went to Blueprint last year, and at the
where does Blueprint take place at?
Okay, so Blueprint it typically happens every spring in Houston, Texas, but they aren't doing it this year. It's undecided like when if they're gonna do it like every 2 years or what. But I lucked out because it was the release of quarantine, right? And they said, all right, we're gonna do this, but we're only gonna have a series of parties, no competition, which was a great filter because everybody was like real hardcore was out there. So Junius Brickhouse was out there, and Koflo was out there, Frankie J was out there, Tsunami was out there, Capella was out there.
Everybody's out.
I mean, it was
invite. What the fuck?
Yeah, and it was ill as fuck. And what was so dope, I had this crazy idea where I was like, okay, well, I'd already been talking to shout out to B Girl Soul, who used to live here in the Twin Cities, but she had moved down to Austin, Texas. And she kept telling me like, yo, you got to come out here, check out Austin and whatnot. And I'm like, yo, I want to. I just, I want to have like a reason to not just like come out and hang, but like, do stuff. And I said, maybe have a competition. All of a sudden, boom, Blueprint's happening. I was like, yo, if I come down here, can I fly to Austin and chill with you for a couple of days? I just want to take a week and just do my own thing. So I stayed at her crib in Austin, and then I rented a car and I drove, 2 hours or 3 hours over to Houston, and then I enjoyed Blueprint. And going out to Blueprint was, it was that thing of like, I know people in the house dancing scene, but not the way that Ozzy does. I don't have that level of connections. But what was so dope was being able to come out and simply just get down in the cypher, and everybody already just goes, yo, you family. It was like there wasn't even like we don't even have to check your references. It was like the Russian mafia, right? Like you got to stand there, and show all your tattoos, and they know your entire history, right? And so I just went out there in the cypher, and that's like the most vulnerable place that you can be,
really
with no other people to dance with, nobody that you know, and you get out there and you just fucking go.
That's crazy.
And then
And
as
you're
soon
by
as
yourself in the cypher.
yeah,
Right.
and then that's when like people all of a sudden come up and they go, yo, where are you from? I'm from Minnesota. Oh, Ozzy. And I'm like, yep, Ozzy. And it's just like, yo, who else do you know? We're talking and shit. And then they're like, wait a minute, you know Frankie J, Littlefoot, this person, and then it's like, okay, so we're pretty much like at that point connected. So then it's like, hey, we're going over to this place after, you want to come with? Yeah, bet. And that is another big pull that people get from dance culture versus the performing culture. Like you don't go to a fucking Jay-Z concert and then afterwards get to chill with Jay-Z,
Right.
and then like at some after party.
Right.
It's like, but at a dance thing, it's not about who's on the stage, it's about who's in the pit. And afterwards, everyone's like, yo, man, we're going to go over to the Uptowner afterwards, or we're going to go this place, or yo, next week, bet, you know, I got you on this thing, I got you on social, so we're going to, and
I concur on that because I would say like I would say a good 50% of my invite to after parties with artists have been just because I break or because I dance. You know, you show up to a place, you dance, they're like, oh damn, you get down. Come
and you
on
know,
out with us
because
after.
you transfer over to Europe all the time, like, you know, you're going out to like Switzerland and places like that, and it's like, and there's folks out there that maybe they speak every language but English.
Yep, but
so,
dancing is what.
But dancing is the tie that binds. So they say, yo, I like how you were getting down in the cypher, you know.
It's like, hey, here's an invite, come on with us for the after party.
Exactly.
Here. And that's why I was telling you how I ended up transitioning into meeting more artists than dancers, because it was literally because of dancing, and then like I just think like artists, especially musicians, love it when people see how well they can connect with their music.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
And it's just, as you said, like it's just a universal language.
That's like my favorite question to ask DJs and producers that don't dance. I'm like, how does it feel to watch dancers dancing to your stuff?
Yeah.
You know, like dancing on beat to like music that you've produced or music that you just selected, like a track that you just selected to play. And they're like, man, it's the wildest shit.
Right.
Especially because they know it's like they helped me produce it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
I'm like, it's because we fucking did. No.
Well, like I point out, you know, it's like the human body is mostly made up of water, right? So we're highly conducive. And when we feel that vibe, it's like the cup in Jurassic Park that's on the dashboard, right? Like as soon as like danger is coming, it's like the dangerous vibes. Well, that's like what we transmit when a DJ or an artist that's like using things sonically puts something out. They want to invoke a feeling.
Right. And there is no music without dance.
Right. And it's like, so when I like, one of the things that it irks me so much about club nights is when people are living vicariously through their phone. And I'm like, yo, you're taking yourself out of the fucking shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, you're basically like, at that point, you're like, hey, congratulations. Look, I was here, and here's all the people, and this is a vibe and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, now that you've captured that to kind of document that you were there,
Be in the vibe.
please interact.
Just be in it.
You know, and it's,
live in it.
yeah, and not just that, but also like as DJs, a lot of us would prefer.
All I
to
know
be-
is going to
Yeah.
fans and.
But it's
Right.
like a lot of us would prefer to be in the booth looking down on everybody connecting and vibing together as
Right.
opposed to, you know, having somebody like look at us, because, you know, what we're basically doing is we're playing other people's music. To be honest, we are playing other folks'
Right.
music and combining it in a creative way, but you're just watching me turn faders and knobs and shit. So I would much rather have everybody, like the cypher, being like facing each other and people vibing that way, and at the end of the night going, yo, that set was brilliant, as opposed to,
looking
you
at
know,
me.
watching me the whole time and seeing what I'm going to do next. Because I'm very vocal about this, and I know it gets on people's nerves and whatever, because, you know, live and let live and kumbaya and all that shit, but I cannot stand motherfuckers getting away from the decks and throwing birthday cake at people just to, you know, Steve Aoki.
Oh, you
But,
said
like-
it. You said it.
But like but it's like that's the gimmick, right? That's
Yeah.
like the punk rock show where the guy decides to cut himself across the
Right.
chest with
or burn
a bottle or
burn
whatever.
the guitar.
Yeah, you know, or like Ozzy Osbourne like biting the head off of a bat or some like shit, rather than just like playing the fucking music and saying like, yo, like this is, I'm here to set up a tone, and then now I'm just like, I'm running out of ideas, so I have to come up with some bullshit. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, then there's other artists who are out there that like you go and you're like, yo, this person set up like a whole nuance and a vibe and a party, and it's just like, and it felt like a living room with like 40,000 people.
Yeah.
You know?
Man, I'm sad. We can do this for 2 hours, y'all. So, but I'm sad we gotta stop this. We gotta wrap it up. But I want you guys to tell your IG handles or where we can find you. So, Ozzy, why don't you go first and go to DJ
sure.
Style.
Well, it works out because I'm mainly on my Instagram. The only time I'm on Facebook is to post about house sessions.
Wait,
Yep.
before, damn, I hope this can stop and hope it's it. But before we go, because I also want to put this on the Dope Man House show real quick, I want to capture the flow state
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about the flow state real quick. So, what's the whole flow state about? What's it all about, and why you guys bringing this up as well?
Dude, we just like to play music.
What's up?
Just three dudes that like to play music.
Yep.
That's the vibe that I get for it.
Hey.
That's the vibe that I get from it. Like I see these guys. First of all, we're in the same house dance crew, Soul Steppers.
And flow state is just like it's not. There's no dance showcasing, but it's just straight up just music.
It's
banging
a party.
house
It's
music.
a party, man. Yeah,
Just house.
Yeah, it's just straight up a party. We play house music, all sorts of different types of house, whether it's like Afro funk, jackin', the whole nine.
And I know it's the second time you guys are putting it on, but this is this going to be like a regular thing or like
We like
just
it
testing
to
out the
be.
waters?
Yeah, we like it to be right now. It's just a test.
Yeah.
More than anything.
So, because like, residency is always like a difficult thing. You might have a place for 3 months in a row, and then one day it just doesn't pan out or whatever.
So we lost cameras. We're dying over here.
But at least we still got this on
But
audio.
we want to
so
get
we'll
that
keep
in.
it
I got
going.
it on that camera.
Yeah.
And
One camera still has it, so we'll
Yep.
just keep it
biggest
going
thing
on flow
is-
state real
So
quick.
you guys are going to continue, there's the event this weekend, but there'll be more
Next
events.
weekend.
Next weekend.
April
Next
8th,
weekend. Next weekend.
down here in Minneapolis.
Right?
Yeah,
Down in
April 8th.
Minneapolis.
Dope
Over
Now
at
High
the,
Show got you on the details. Just we wanted to also get the details for y'all.
Yep,
out
yep.
there.
We'll get it
So,
all on there.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we're all about supporting and connecting, and like I told you before the show started, I want to talk to you about something later on. So that's what it is. I'm mad that we weren't prepared like we should be, but it's me. I wasn't prepared. I'm not blaming anybody but
me too,
myself.
I think things were
It's
on
okay.
my
It's still
bad.
gonna be the
Right.
best
As we're
episode you've
wrapping
ever
out of
had.
time, we can't keep you guys
Yeah,
hostage here
in 2
all night
hours
as well.
So,
But we can always come back and do something
yeah,
more.
we gonna come back and do this again.
And also, before we wrap it up, a big shout out to Ozzy and Dris. Styles and Driss is a podcast.
Yeah, Styles and
Shout
Driss.
out to y'all for having me out there on you guys' shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a fun time with you guys on
Yes.
that. So they also do have a podcast on there where we'll put the socials and everything for y'all.
Yeah,
Go
we're
ahead
on
and find it there.
Spotify predominantly, as well as iTunes or
Apple Music.
You
Apple
guys are-
much
I know you guys
Yeah,
on
we're on every
Spotify.
format.
We're on
You guys are
everything.
not on Apple's, are you?
We are.
Apple
Yeah, we're on
Podcasts?
Apple
Okay, Apple
Podcasts,
Podcasts.
yeah.
So Styles and Driss.
we're
Once
on
again,
Google
you'll find it
Play.
on there. But also find the Dope Not a Hype Show. You also find it on there because we do repost y'all shit
Right.
as well.
and we appreciate that too,
so-
because like you've also promoted like some of our mixes and things like that, and featured us on.
The next person I gotta have on is Ozzy because I see you back. I see you posting there.
Yeah.
I see you.
He's getting naughty.
I know. I
He's
was
getting
like,
naughty.
fuck, I guess I got to do this DJ shit again.
Hey, we
Shit.
get back at it. I'll be live. I'll be
One last
summertime.
thing, we did get Turnstile's origin story on his name, Ozzy. What was the origin story behind your dancing name, Ozzy?
So my real name is Osmund. It's Osmund. It's a German name, but I'm of Filipino descent. My dad named me after him, so I'm a junior. When I first got into breaking, I went through all sorts of fucking names, like aliases, like some of the corniest fucking names ever. Like one of them was like Dreamer, silent,
Little fucking dreamer,
B-boy
eh?
silent. The other one was just straight up. The one that I rolled with for a very long time was Pinoy, because like there weren't a lot of Filipino b-boys here in Minnesota. So I rolled with that for a minute, and people like still remember me from that fucking name, and I'm like, stop. And then it wasn't until if it's
Stop. Be damned.
yeah, and then if it was so. If you know anything, if you're from the scene, you probably have already seen this shit. But like Propaganda ended up going through a number of different variations, from Propaganda to Power Rangers to Warriors, and then to Break Cops. Right?
I just clicked Break Cops with Warriors and Propaganda now.
Yeah.
All right,
Well, the
okay.
original members are like me, Joe, and Johnny, or like straight up from Propaganda crew. But it was Los Boogie that was like, dude, stop with all these bullshit ass names. We're just gonna call you Ozzy. And I was like, okay, that's fair.
I'll rock with it.
And
Yeah.
I just went with it. And then there was a time where I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna throw my name in there too, my last name in there. So Ozzy Driss.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of Ozzies, and unfortunately, the way I spell it is the way Ozzy Osbourne is spelled too. So I might as well throw my last name in there just to kind of like,
Change it up.
yeah. kind of set the tone on that one.
That's what's up.
No, it was appropriate because very memorable. Because both of your turnstile, I ain't gonna forget that. Ozzy Dris, I'm definitely not gonna forget that. You know,
it's easy.
Right.
It's easy.
But you got your DJ handle too. You got OD4.
Yeah. So I have my DJ handle is OD4.
Okay. What's the origin behind that?
So my name Ozzy Driss. So OD, and then my number is number 4 because that's my birthday's on November 4th. So golden birthday. I honestly I got inspired by fucking CR7.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big Juventus fan, way before Cristiano Ronaldo joined Juventus. But I just locked in even more when he got signed by Juventus, and it's like fuck CR7, it's so catchy. I like OD4. I'm gonna make that happen. So in the DJ realm, that's what I go by. But everyone's like, fuck you, your name is Ozzy. I'm like, you're right.
No, but people got to respect that when you're in a different craft or a different discipline, because now dance to DJing is a different discipline. Like, no, I'm OD4 now.
Right.
I'm not Ozzy Dress. I'm OD4.
Well, and the thing too is that like with names, sometimes there's people that can do them that are like very self-aggrandizing and corny and shit. But other times there's like people that will put a lot of thought or effort, whether it's you or somebody else that gave you that handle. So if there's like meaning to you, that's the most important aspect. I mean, because I've run into like arguments about this where some people are like, yo, rule of thumb, you never name yourself. You always got to let somebody else name you. But it's like, but if someone decides they want to call you, B-boy Dick Stain, and it sticks, then you're kind of stuck, right? So it's like first and foremost, I think of it again because of hip hop, right, and graph specifically, is that you have to take ownership of something. So if you're going to write your name, if you're going to promote your name, it's part of your brand, right? So you have to make sure that whatever it is, it's indicative of like who you are, what you value, things like that. If you agree with it, and someone says, "Yo, man, you killer Mike," because you kill him with this shit, and you're like, "Yeah, I like it. All right, cool. I'm gonna stick with it." But and there's some people that'll be out there that will go through kind of an identity crisis of like 15, 20, 30 different names because they still can't find something that sticks. And then there's other times where it just makes sense and you just go, yo, this is...
It's P. Diddy, though. Like, P. Diddy went from Puff Daddy to
right.
P. Diddy to Diddy back to P. Diddy. Like,
Kanye to Ye to Yeezy to Yeezus.
Yeah, I honestly like the whole OD4 thing because some
that.
people they don't realize that it's fucking me.
No, that's why it's dope.
And they're like, oh shit, it's Ozzy. That's OD4. It makes sense.
That's why this shit's dope.
And I'm like, surprise, motherfucker.
Okay, it looks like at least you got the mic.
Gonna call it.
It looks like it's about time to wrap it up. Somebody's trying to get the fuck out of here.
Whoa, no, I did not mean to do that.
No, so back
but
to
no, it was great talking to you guys. I don't know why.
What the fuck just happened right now?
Malfunctions.
Man, this place is falling apart, man. We're going to call this the Leprosy Podcast.
This is like the worst comeback, but great comeback. I don't care.
We're going to call it
I'm going to talk like this.
Okay? We're falling apart like the Iraqi fucking Navy right now.
For real.
I don't know how that happened.
Going back to what Rock was asking, Instagram handles. My Instagram handle is OZZYDR, the number 1 and S.
Okay.
So, Ozzy Driss.
Yeah, and I'm a Turnstile DJ, TURNSTYLE.
And we're going to get that on the, we'll get that up.
Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah.
Yeah, okay.
This is embarrassing, but hey, this is
okay.
the Dope Not Hype. Just Be One podcast. It'll be better. I promise. It's getting there.
No, I think this was good. I'm gonna give you guys one last your last opportunity, your last message to the people listening in. Anything you guys gotta say to the people? If you don't got anything to say, it's okay.
Ozzy,
you can say
go first.
I never have anything to say.
I always have everything to say, so I always feel embarrassed. It's
No,
like,
I'm
yo.
just kidding. But
I know, message, inspiration, anything. I don't know, whatever you're doing.
All right. Everything that you do in life, do with sincerity, whether it's carrying water or sharpening your sword or putting out a fire or, farming. Do it with sincerity. Do it with absolute honesty, because at the end of the day, the only thing that we really have to rely on is truth. And if you can do something without any kind of regret, then you're living a life that's worth remembering. So please be sincere. Fake ass motherfuckers. Bitch ass, fake ass, trick ass,
like a
bitch.
samurai monologue and straight like
Yeah.
bonks.
And see that's the b-boy part of it. Yo, throw the penis, throw the invisible penis. You did this. You conquered physics. Now you gotta throw the penis. Anyway, sorry.
The only thing I gotta say is just be a good person. That's it.
Awesome.
Be a good person.
I rock with that.
Dude, seriously, thank y'all for coming through. Like,
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
having
guys for
Thank you
having
for coming
us.
through. Thank you for dealing with the bullshit. Maybe one day we'll be set up.
And can have y'all back for another proper one with actually the backdrop going on, because that
Yeah.
didn't work out either.
Yeah. In the summer, let's get it going.
Yeah.
Talk about some shit and just more of a conversation. We're more set up and to do a longer podcast. I think that it was a good conversation. But we didn't know we talked this long and shit died on us. But
Yeah.
You should hear
this
our
is dope.
podcast.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're back at it. So. I don't give a fuck if people don't like it. We're rocking. So, all right. Appreciate it. It's the Just Rewind podcast. Dope, not hype. Man, we're coming at you. So I appreciate it. Peace.
Peace.
What's good? What's good with y'all? Yeah, it's been a minute. We had a few hiccups. We shot a few episodes, but the sound wasn't right. Things weren't working right, so we don't go back to the workshop and figure out what was going wrong. We're back at you. Big thank you to DJ Turnstile and Ozzy Dris for popping up and showing love, discussing life, dance, house music, background. There's everything in between. So I appreciate y'all, man. A big theme I picked up on in this conversation was, community, finding your people. You got your family, you got your friends, but sometimes you gotta find your people, the people who you aspire to be like, or you wanna, they're doing what you want to do. So, go find those people, and you'll find more about yourself. So again, big thank you for popping up. Listen to me ramble, listen to my friends ramble. I appreciate it. And I love all the support. So we're gonna keep it going, we're gonna keep it rocking. And until next time, y'all. Peace.